Compliments of the season, I'm Linda Akibe and you're welcome to the Gavel. It was a nail-biting week in the National Assembly. The focus was on the Electoral Act Amendment Bill and if President Buhari would give or decline assent to the bill. The President did not sign the bill into law and returned it to the National Assembly. In a letter to federal legislators, he explained his reasons for this. So as you can imagine, there have been different reactions to the President's stance from lawmakers themselves, lawyers, civil society organizations, and several other people. The attention of many Nigerians have been fixed on President Buhari since November 19th, when the National Assembly forwarded the Electoral Act Amendment Bill to him for assent. They wondered if he would sign the bill into law or veto it because of a clause in the bill which compels political parties to hold direct primaries, a position which the governors in the ruling APC are not in support of. On Monday evening, reports filtered out that President Buhari had returned the bill to the National Assembly. But it was the following day at plenary when Nigerians had the complete details on the President's position and what informed his stance.
The conduct of direct primaries across the 8,809 wards across the length and breadth of the country will lead to a significant spike in the cost of conducting primary elections by parties, as well as increase in the cost of monitoring such elections by INEC. In addition to increased costs identified above, conducting and monitoring primary elections across 8,809 wards will pose huge security challenges, as the security agencies will also be overstretched, and such large turnout without effective security coordination will also engender intimidation and disruptions, thereby raising credibility issues for the outcomes of such elections.
But a federal legislator draws his colleagues back to President Buhari's letter.
Mr. President, it is my opinion that the Senate dissolve into a closed-door session and discuss on it so that we can take appropriate decision on it.
A closed-door session begins. Nearly 30 minutes later, proceedings are open to the public. Lawmakers gather in groups, discussing the President's letter and writing on a piece of paper. Sources say these are signatures from legislators showing their intention to overturn President Buhari's veto on the Electoral Act Amendment Bill. However, the Senate President makes no mention of what transpired during the executive session and adjourns plenary till the following day. In the House of Representatives, the Speaker also reads the letter from President Buhari declining assent to the Electoral Act Amendment Bill.
We included in that bill provisions we hoped will significantly enhance the conduct of our national elections and improve public confidence in our electoral outcomes. As it is now, that bill has not received presidential assent, and it falls to Parliament to decide the best way forward. When we return in the new year, we will resume our efforts to reform the electoral system in our country, and we will do it together.
As plenary progresses, a member raises a matter of privilege, urging the Speaker to guide the House on how to respond to President Buhari's letter.
The word now in the streets is that this is a do-nothing house. You've read the President's correspondence. We need to have a direction. You need to guide this house, confine next course of action.
The minority leader also raises a matter of privilege to immediately address the matter.
If we wait till we resume January 18 or thereabout, before we can listen to Nigerians and do what is expected of us, it will be a little bit late, given the number of months that will be left before primaries. So, Mr. Speaker, I'm begging this House that we can suspend our rules and immediately look at that clause that talks about direct primaries.
I'm sure you are cognizant of the fact that we run a bicameral legislature. It takes 2 wings to fly. So even if you amend now, you can't even send it to Mr. President if the Senate is not amended. And so I will implore that if you amend now and you amend in January when we return, I don't think we've lost much ground.
The House of Representatives proceeds on its end-of-year holiday, and whatever response it intends to make as regards President Buhari's decision on the Electoral Act Amendment Bill will be clearer when it resumes in January 2022. The following day, the Senate resumes plenary session. However, President Buhari's declining assent on the Electoral Act Amendment Bill looms heavily among these senators. Some of them have resolved to veto the president on the bill, and information shared with journalists on Tuesday. As sitting begins, the Senate President immediately calls for a closed-door session. More than 30 minutes later, the executive session ends, and the Senate President discloses the position of the legislators.
The Senate consequently resolve to consult with the House of Representatives in January, when both the Senate and the House will be in session. Presently, the House of Reps has gone on recess. And like we all know, the constitutional provision is for the Senate and the House of Representatives to jointly take the appropriate action. The Senate also resolved to consult with our constituents during our recess in January.
The picture will become much clearer when the National Assembly resumes in January on what its response will be on the matter.
As expected, federal legislators are making their thoughts known on President Buhari's declining assent on the Electoral Act Amendment Bill.
Why will Mr. President say he doesn't want direct primary? The country is not its own limited liability company. This is a country, and this is a chamber. So the Senate ought to override him. That was what Section 58, 4 and 5 said. So if the Constitution gives us the provision to do so, we use our powers to do it. And they are saying that it must be people present and voting. But our rules give us 3 methods of voting. One method is voice vote. Another method is by signing a document, a signature. The third method is electronics. So we can use anyone. If we have the 2/3 on signature, you take it. Now American president sitting in the Senate for all the voting. They can be anywhere and press their buttons and vote. They can be anywhere and give their even aides to go and vote for them. So why are we taking ourselves back as if we are village people?
So we're seeing people compiling signatures inside the Senate chamber.
Yes. We've gotten more than 73% required to override the veto.
Does it cross across party lines?
Yes, every person.
Meanwhile, lawmakers in the House of Representatives do not appear to be considering the option of overriding the president for now, as they await the direction of the House leadership.
You see, the speech of the Speaker said that we should make sure that we leave everything until when we come back. By the time we come back, you know, today is the last day of our plenary. So by the time we come back, at least we'll be able to know. But we have the chance, and at the same time, as a legislator, you can override certain. When we come back, I think we know what to do.
Whether we say direct primary or indirect primary, it doesn't count. What counts is how best can a candidate emerge. And the electorate will say, this is the person we want. The party members through which the candidate will be vying for the election will say, yes, we voted for this guy to emerge as our candidate. We are going to support him. This candidate must win. Popularity is needed in terms of contest.
The president's decision, I would think, is in the interest of the country. So while it is not very popular, I think a critical look at it will show you that democracy in itself allows for choice. And if you say the political parties should not have a choice as to what method to select their candidates with, you will be removing the democratic process from the system. So I think that is a major matter. As to finance and cost, it's another issue. Then it is obvious that the method of direct primaries would have been more difficult to manage.
It is not unexpected, because we see the movement and the body language of the governors, series of meetings. But I believe as an institution, by the time we return from our recess at the break, we're going to take position. But as it is, I think all the political parties should just decide on their own what to be done. But if you ask me personally, I would say I am not disappointed. It is expected, and I'm sure many Nigerians out there, despite their cry, despite their appeal to President Muhammadu Buhari to assent to this. Unfortunately, we couldn't get there. It's a process, I believe. Our democracy, we are getting there. Even those that were copying the United States of America, it took them centuries before they could get to where they are today. So we are not discouraged, but as an institution, we're going to take position when we resume back from Christmas recess.
From what Mr. President said, he now made an opinion of other people, other agencies, other security, which he wrote to. So it's still something that National Assembly is going to review, because there is some point he made that the National Assembly need to look into. So going more deeply of a decline, signing of the appropriation, is not something I can stand to speak, because we have a leadership. It's something that both the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary need to work hand to hand. So it's not something of a problem for people to come to start saying that the National Assembly should override Mr. President. No, so it's something we have to look the benefit of the people and the interests of the masses.
Civil society groups have been at the forefront of the campaign for the passage of the Amendment Bill of the Electoral Act. At various times, peaceful protests were held to push for the passage of the bill. This is aside the several engagements with federal lawmakers. They consider the passage of the bill as key to the conduct of a credible election in Nigeria. Now that the president has refused to assent the bill, the convener of the Civil Society Situation Room, Mrs. Ene Obi, believes the investment of time and conversation around the electoral bill demonstrated the desire of Nigerians to elevate the electoral process.
Nigerians are disappointed. It's a simple feeling, and a very painful feeling of disappointment. A lot of Nigerians, are discussing this morning, this is where we are. We have been here before. We have been here how many times? And we are here again. The only hope now is a National Assembly. Unfortunately, they are toying through the party lines of saying, because the president is from this party, if you want to vote, you need to be behind the president. Are you supposed to be behind the president or behind the people?
In rejecting the bill, President Muhammadu Buhari had stated his concerns on the clause that requires all political parties to conduct direct primaries as the mode for selecting their candidates for election. However, for social activists, all is not lost.
If the president is on the same page with all of us about improving elections, about electronic transmission of results, about the increased use of technology in elections, then well and good. We're all happy that the National Assembly can respond to his concerns and reflect that in fresh changes to the electoral bill and send back to the president for assent.
One of the best approaches we can adopt in this regard is for the lawmakers to quickly, as soon as they reconvene, they should quickly amend the troublesome clause 87, to revert back to the direct and indirect modes of conducting primary elections by political parties.
You're welcome back to the Gavel. Federal lawmakers have shut down for the year and are on holiday to celebrate Christmas and New Year. They're resuming on the 18th of January 2022. Now, before going on holiday, the National Assembly performed some last-minute actions. They passed the 2022 budget and approved President Buhari's request for the varment of 276.7 billion naira to fund expenditures in the 2021 budget. The Senate also confirmed the appointment of Mr. Mwazu Sambo as a minister.
December 2021 be approved, say.
Before proceeding on the Christmas and New Year holiday, the National Assembly passed the 2022 budget. This is in fulfilling its promise to continue with the practice of a one-year budget cycle in the country. The House of Representatives, on its final day of sitting for the year, passed the 2022 budget at 17.126 trillion naira against 16.391 trillion naira presented by the President. The capital and recurrent expenditures, as well as debt service and statutory transfers, remained unchanged, but the House increased the benchmark price for crude from $57 to $62 per barrel, from which an increase in revenue is expected. The House also made provision for the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission and the National Financial Intelligence Unit to utilize 10% of the monies recovered by them for their operations. This is a concern for the leader of the PDP caucus.
To me, it appears to be superfluous, it's very ambiguous, and in fact excessively discretionary. When we ask that all monies recovered by EFCC and NFIU, 10% of it should be spent by them as operational cost. Yet we budget for them for this operational cost. And then how do we assess the 10%? The law did not also take care of that. It means it is at their discretion to say that this is what they recovered and this is what amounts to 10% of what they recovered. I think that we should look at it very closely.
EFCC has never taken advantage of it. So maybe we'll look at it more closely next time. We'll scrutinize it more closely, give them an opportunity to utilize it. But what we're trying to do is to strengthen one of the pillars. The problem is corruption. If this will strengthen their fight against corruption, well, so be it.
The 2022 budget deficit is increased by 98 billion naira to accommodate some other requests of national importance which have not been captured in the budget estimates and which could not be covered by the revenue increase. An increase by 400 billion naira is also reserved for agencies which came forward with financial reports which were not captured in the proposed budget, such as INEC, Ministries of Humanitarian Affairs, Works and Housing and Defense, as well as the National Assembly, National Security Advisor, and more. Other key capital allocations in the proposed budget include Defense, 204.62 billion naira, Federal Ministry of Education, 159.66 billion naira, Federal Ministry of Health, 130.08 billion naira, National Assembly Library Building, 5 billion naira, NAS e-Library, 300 million naira, and Constitution Review, 1 billion naira.
December 2021 be approved, say aye.
The Senate also passed a 17.126 trillion naira 2022 budget after considering a report by its Appropriations Committee. It retains majority of the estimates presented by the President in the budget, but like the House of Representatives, it increased the benchmark price of crude from $57 to $62 per barrel.
The deficit was increased by 98 billion to include some other requests made by the executive arm of government to take care of some projects of national importance which were not provided in the submitted budget estimate and could not be covered by the increase in revenue. Recommendations. 1. The increase in oil benchmark from $57 per barrel to $62 per barrel to reflect the current market value in the international markets. 2. The committee recommends that the additional revenues discovered should be provided to the following agencies that forwarded their request for more funding for very critical projects: Works and Housing, Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, for the 2023 general elections, Defense, and the National Population Commission, NPC, for the 2022 population census.
For the 2022 appropriation bill, we are expecting that the bill will be cleaned up between today and tomorrow, and we hope that by tomorrow, the bill will be sent to Mr. President for his assent. And we are very optimistic that Mr. President will assent to the bill like he did for 2020 and 2021, so that by January 2022, the implementation of the budget 2022 will commence by the grace of God.
The Senate also approved President Buhari's request for the devirement of 276.7 billion naira to fund expenditures in the 2021 budget. The devirement request is for payment of contractors, public service wage adjustment for MDAs, funds for the Federal Ministry of Education, Nigeria Air Force, Defense, and FEMA. Some lawmakers gave their views on the passage of the budget.
It's a budget of hope and a budget of restoration to the accomplishment of the leadership of Mr. President and all what the project of infrastructure and some other things that is having. So it's a budget that we can see that is workable in the sense that since assumption of the office of Mr. President, this is the only time Nigeria have funding of the budget 100%. And you can see that the effect is there. But the major issue we are looking at is that most of the agencies that are frustrating implementation of this budget. A situation by which that most of the agencies, this is the time they are doing bids, opening a bid document. So what time will the contractor have to go to the site to do the work?
The saddest part of it is the amount we are using to service our loan. If you look at it, it's uncalled for. And I think we can do more by generating more so that we can reduce the rate we borrow funds to finance our budget and to get our infrastructure done.
On Tuesday, December 21st, the Senate confirmed the nomination of Mwazo Sambo as minister-designate after he was screened by lawmakers. President Buhari had nominated Mr. Sambo as a ministerial nominee from Taraba State and sent his name to the Senate for confirmation. Mr. Sambo may likely replace the former Minister of Power, Saleh Maman, who President Buhari sacked in September 2021. Before he was confirmed, the nominee answered questions on the state of electricity infrastructure, particularly the Mambila hydropower project.
The major constraint against further progress or the taking off of these projects has been the arbitration case in Paris. There must be a way we can compensate the company that took us to court. And if I am posted to the Ministry of Power by Mr. President upon confirmation by this hallowed chamber, I will definitely make a difference within 1 year.
He also gave solutions to the problem of insistent building collapse in the country.
One of the major factors is the application of substandard or defective materials, mainly because a client or a building owner wants to cut corners and make more profit. One other fundamental point you have to consider is, and which a lot of people ignore, is what we call subsoil investigation. Now, this is particularly relevant in places like Lagos, which is an area that is below sea level. You need to have the right foundation on which your building will stand, and for you to do that, you need to do some subsoil investigations to determine the nature of the soil below the ground. That in turn will help you determine the type of design for foundation that you will have to come up with.
This is where we call it a day on this week's edition of The Gavel. If you have any views on any of the issues discussed, please email us on thegavel@channelstv.com. Thank you for staying with us and see you again next week.